Hello and welcome to the show. I am back on BeamNG Drive with more of your automation cars taking on the Autocross course. We start with a vehicle from SweGamer98. It is the Vette Gold brand. An all-wheel drive turbocharged flat 4-car. It is the lightest of the day at 972 kilos, power 243 and 170 torque. It's probably not the certainly not the greatest power to weight ratio we have ever seen out of a car, but it's in that kind of fairly decent region. If it drives, if it handles nicely, we could see a pretty respectable time as long as there's no massive weird things going on with the car. Ooh, okay, we don't really stop, but might have just been me. Let's not write the brakes off immediately. It's always scary going down to that first corner. We're never quite sure. Okay, it's got nice turning. I like that. It has got very nice turning actually through these corners, seeming to be able to carry good amount of speed. It certainly doesn't it doesn't waste time getting around these turns. Right, now this is a fast right-hander, and again, more good speed from the car. I have a horrible feeling it might not have the biggest brakes. We aren't seeing big lockups, we aren't seeing silly lockups from the car. It is lovely, it's lovely grip in general. It's very planted when you go to stick your foot down, and very good at getting turned into these corners. I have a horrible feeling. We'll have to check the brakes afterwards. It might be, again, one of these running on a tiny brakes. 80 miles an hour down the back straight. The relative lack of power here is going to hurt it a little bit. I think his acceleration is still pretty good. Oh yeah, the brakes are not quite burning. They're not quite melting like we have seen from certainly from last week. However, as we come up across the line, it's a sub 20. Yeah, they're small. They're not the tiniest brakes. The front brakes are slightly, the back brakes are tiny, which is why they're overheating. The front brakes are fairly small. I would imagine it's a car built with what automation said, without realising that what automation says might be fine for a road car. Terrible when it comes to taking on an autocross car. Still, a sub 20 on your first run. It's not bad. Go sub 20 on a first run with a car that is perhaps a little underpowered as well in the grand scheme of things. So it's going to be early on the brakes. The time in this is going to be made up through the corners. If we're going to make any sort of faster time, we're going to get quicker runs, it's all going to have to come from the corners. So yeah, that front end is pretty damn responsive, which is very, very nice. It's actually a really good looking car. I think this one, it is a very good looking car overall. No mighty wings on it. Certainly doesn't feel like it's lacking in terms of the handling department. Does not feel as if it is lacking anything in terms of grip. Yeah, that point, I'm flat out there on the exit. I might have been a little. I'm flat out on the exit. I have got the grip to get flat on the exit. I think it pushes us a little bit wide for the next corner, but a lot of even all-wheel drive cars struggle to manage that. So again, we're flat out onto this back straight. Minimal amount of sliding around. And this is because we've got accessible power in this car. It's all well and good having 700 horsepower, but when you can't use most of it, it makes it a very difficult car to drive. Whereas this thing I can use just about all of the power. Actually got it stopped pretty well at that time, even with the tiny brakes across the line. Ooh, that's going quick. 18.5. Yeah, okay, sure, we are a bit off the top spot. We're actually 2.5 seconds off almost the top spot. But it's also a bit down in terms of the power, and there's big brake issues, shall we say, going on. Very, very big brake issues. Well, I say very big. Not, as I said, not the worst, but it's never reassuring when you're coming up towards a big stopping point, knowing that the brakes are either going to start to overheat or just haven't got the stopping power in this. I mean, you can see the ABS. I imagine this has got ABS. Yeah, we've seen even cars with ABS with some of the really massive brakes actually locking up. Now, it does make this car an easier one to drive, and that is something which is helpful when you've only got 3 runs to go as quick as you can. Sure, I know the course pretty well now. When you've only got 3 runs to learn what a car can do, being accessible is very, very important, and this car is very, very easily accessible. We don't have any funny business from just about any aspect of the car, aside from its inability to slow down, but that's something you get used to. Something that's easier to adjust to. You just, push your braking points back, although in this case, certainly down that back straight, because of its speed, I can still use the same rough braking point I've used for a lot of cars. It might not slow down as well, but because, it's not going as quick, there's less speed to truck off, and it's fairly light. It gets away with the brakes a little bit more. I mean, if it was 1,200 kilos, you'd probably be in trouble. It's a similar run time, not quicker, but very, very, very close. It's a very nice car to drive. It's a very, very nice car to drive. Let down by tiny brakes. A little bit more power perhaps wouldn't go amiss if it was going to go to the very, very top. And that acceleration down the back straight is, 10 miles an hour off some of the faster cars. And they've still been able to carry the speed through the corners. But, an excellent, excellent handling vehicle. Our next vehicle is a rather sad-looking car. It is called the Centaur Stallion, built by Canafa. All-wheel drive, naturally aspirated i5 in this, 245 horsepower, 179 torque. It is the heaviest car of the day at 1,379 kilos, which means, power-to-weight ratio on this is not great. It's also not on the semi-slick tyres. What have we got suspension-wise? Going on here, it's not push rod around, actually not the massivest, biggest, it's probably the word I was going for, of tyres on the car. Guess we'll find out how it is going to, grip around here. I mean, this looks more like a sensible, normal road car, if you like, tackling this course rather than a custom purpose-built autocross car. If it is all-wheel drive, there is a lot of bias to those front wheels. We seem to be getting understeer. It won't actually be the first car that we have seen some impressive all-wheel drive front wheel spin if the balance is too far to the front. I will say, credit to the car, it is not the worst driving vehicle I have had. There's also a cat. You might hear her in the background, she won't be too far away. He's squeaking away like mad, I don't know why. She does this, if she wakes up and she doesn't know where you are, she will squeak until either you find her or she finds you. It's kind of funny, kind of noisy. What do you want, kitten? You're making a lot of noise. I don't know where she is. But anyway, back to the car. Oh, she's found the office. The vehicle for a non-semi-slick car is actually doing pretty well in the old handling department. There's no real major complaints with it. It drives fairly well. It's perhaps just not. It's not as good through the corners, of course, as some, and it won't have the straight line speed. It's a 29.6. Again, for a road car, not too bad. For what is a much more normal-based road car, that is not too bad. I think we're going to struggle to get much fast. Well, I'll say much faster. Might get a little bit more out of it. There's not much you can really do. It doesn't feel awfully slow, which I guess is a positive. It doesn't feel completely boat-like around here. Again, sub 130s for the more normal designed cars, not the ultra specialized cars for this sort of thing. Is actually not that bad going, considering you're always gonna be hampered by your tyre choice. And this much, I say this much right again. I say this every week, but I have to say it every week because even when I say it every week, people still don't bloody listen. Yes, in reality, 1,300 kilos is probably not that much for a car. But this is a very specialised series. When you've got cars running with 300-400 horsepower and they weigh 700 kilos, they change direction and accelerate like mad. And when this thing weighs twice that and has less horsepower, you can see where it's going to struggle in terms of ultimate lap time. You've got to wait to get on that power. Quite a lot of wheel spin coming off that corner. One more big stop down here. At least we've got sensible sized brakes. They're not overheating. They seem to do a decent job. I mean, it's just the sheer amount of weight you've got to move change direction in this is not going to help it. It's another fairly similar lap times, a big smash on the wall, bye-bye to the wheel. They're not the biggest brakes we've seen on the car, though it doesn't need them. This is one of the cases where you do get away with them. I mean, this has still got bigger brakes than the last car we had, and, you know, this is going considerably slower. In all the braking zones, you're working them considerably less than you would on some of the ultra fast cars. So we go for a late apex here, see if we can get away. We're getting on that power a little bit, yeah, get on the power a little bit sooner, make the most of the cars, well, what acceleration there is. I don't actually know if there's going to be many ways to get much more out of the vehicle. We'll try a little bit where we can. I guess as a road-going, you know, sort of semi-hot hatch, it's not bad, you know, as a normal road-going car. Certainly, I've taken some of my, in some of the streams we've done, I've taken some of my weirder creations around here. Cars not at all intended to go around here, you know, running road tyres and so on. And yeah, you know, it's difficult. This is a tough course for road cars. You are near constant turning through here. You need so much grip to get through these courses, and there's all of these little short acceleration zones that you need both the traction and the power to really make the most of. It is a very seriously tough test for a car. I mean, this is only up to about 72 miles an hour down that back straight. I was as late on the brakes as I dare. If anything, I was a little bit late. I've got a kitten trying to climb up onto the chair. Eve, oh, well, hello Eve. That is you're a pain in the arse. Did you know that? Oh no, I've got a kitten. She has flopped herself onto the controller. Get through to the finish line. That was your fault. There was a kitten distraction. I mean, she luckily didn't quite flop onto any important buttons. You're not squeaking now, are you? You're just comfy. Kitten-based shenanigans. I'll be honest, I don't think there was that much more speed in the car anyway. But kittens getting in the way is a ever-present danger. Not so you can really design your car around for this. Our third contender to run through the course today comes from Tracy Pup. This is the Zeta ZS2000 Turbo. They've got some long names going on. All-wheel drive, turbocharged i6 in this one, making it the most powerful car of the day. 358 horsepower, 255 torque. It is a smidge on the heavier side, again, while lighter than the Centaur. 1,200 kilos does make it, yeah, a little bit heavier, again, than some of the very, very fast cars that have run. But if we have got the composure to go with it, we might be okay. We have seen some of these cars run pretty well. I don't think we're going to see a 16 out of it, but you never know. Sub 20 should be doable. Does seem to get change direction very, very well indeed. In fact, almost a little too well. Bumped the wheel on the... Okay, that's fine, actually. Bumped the wheel on the wall. I was expecting it to snap the wheel apart. We actually didn't. The wheel was fine. I was fully expecting that to go pinging off into the distance. Yeah, the front end is getting change direction very, very well indeed. That's quite impressive. We've got a fairly mighty... Not the mightiest wing we've seen at all. It's been very difficult to beat some of the cars that have gone with entire tennis courts on the roof of one of them. But actually going a little bit... I'll go a little bit slower through some of these corners than I really can, because it's getting turned in so savagely that I've got to sort of have a second go, because I've got to release the initial sort of steering lock. That bodes well for the car. That does bode pretty damn well for the car in terms of speed. I mean, perhaps again the slight extra bit of weight is not only is it the quarter grip that might struggle, the braking might also hurt a little bit. There's definitely a lot more time in that car. I was just not really ready for the amount of turn in that the vehicle had. It really does change direction. I will be honest, I was expecting that run to be a fraction quicker. It's one of those cars that feels very, very quick. I think it's just the sharpness of the initial turn. I don't actually know how it compares in terms of mid-corner speed. It's all these hairpins. Like a couple of miles an hour might not sound like much, but if you can hold a couple of miles an hour around there, then that does make a very, very big difference in terms of your overall speed. And it's a very good judgment of just how much grip a car has got. Right, there's a bit of tile squeal from there. Dive on the brakes. It doesn't feel like it's the... Yeah, I don't know whether it's the brake size or whether it's just that little bit more weight. Doesn't feel like the sharpest car at getting slowed down. Again, consistent, which is nice to have. It is very consistent in terms of its performance. We're not doing any weird things. I'm not getting any wheel vibrations at all from the car. We're a little bit wide through there. We'll bring it back for the next part. On the power we go. There's a little bit of wheel speed. Again, it's a little bit of wheel speed, I think, from the front of the car. We're certainly not seeing any sideways stuff from this, which is nice. I like having my planted cars, and this is working very well in terms of the acceleration. We'll run a little bit of a wider line towards the hairpin. Through there we go. We're 1 second gear for this. Wiggle our way towards the line. It's 20.9. Feels faster. What are the brakes like on that? Yeah, the brakes are huge. That's a strange one. Like, that feels really quick. It feels really fast. Yeah, I just can't seem to find speed in the car. I'm not sure where I'm losing out. I'm not sure where it's losing out to the sub 20 cars. I mean, it definitely feels like it is a easily going sub 20 around here. It's not. Now, I've talked about this before, and it is something that does happen sometimes with cars. You can build a car that feels very, very quick and actually isn't, and, well, quite easily vice versa. You'd be surprised how many times fast cars are actually horrendous things to drive. This feels... Yeah, I don't know where it's losing its time. Like, as I said, brakes are one area that are perhaps its weakest area in comparison, but the rest of it, you know, we've seen a lot worse cars. We've had cars melting their brakes before the end of the runs. And this thing is certainly not that bad. It's got sensible sized brakes. So what is our straight line speed like down here? What are we going to do in terms of top end? 82? Yeah, I mean, that's about right. It's about average for speed, especially considering power, while decent, you know, is certainly no massive record breaker, and the weight is a little bit higher, so that's what we would expect to see from the car. What have we got in terms of this final run? I was trying to straighten up for that blast to the line. I can't get speed out of it. It's a bit of a mystery. It's a lovely car to drive. I was a little bit wonky through those final corners, but honestly, we were really not there. It's a happy looking car. Look how cheerful it is from the low camera angles. Yeah, I don't know. It felt bloody fast. Certainly faster than the high 20s. I don't know where the speed went. I have no idea on that one. The final vehicle to run through the course today is actually made by the guy who made the FR17 mods. Made by Raider Sky. It is the Raider BX2 all-wheel drive flat 4 naturally aspirated engine in this. 292 horsepower, full push-rod suspension. By the looks of it, just shy of 200 torque. Again, this is a little bit of a heavier car. I say a bit heavier car. It's actually been a heavier episode for vehicles. Another 1,200 kilogram machine. Looks pretty damn good. Mighty wing at the back. What are we going to see in terms of speed from this machine? Are we going to be able to go faster than the poor Zeta? I'm not sure. I don't know. Like that car, I'm still confused by that vehicle. This immediately feels pretty good through these corners. Interesting sound, actually, from the flat 4. Not as devastatingly loud as the flat 6s. Flat 6s are a strange engine. Like, we've had some that have been utterly, deafeningly loud, and then there are others that are fairly normal. The flat 4's a little bit more usual, I think, or a little bit more consistent in terms of their in terms of their noise. It's another car. I'm liking it. I'm liking the car very much. We've got, again, it's one of those with no real major complaints. Handles nicely through these corners. Straight line speed, we may struggle a little bit. We are a fraction down in terms of power, and we are that little bit heavier. Can we see an 80 mile an hour plus sort of speed? Ooh, okay, we might just crack 80. I mean, that's always going to be where this car is likely to struggle that little bit, and slow you down for here, make it around the final of the big braking zones, or through the final big braking zones, wiggle towards the line. So 22, ooh, we've done funny things with that rear wheel. 22-0 for the Raider. We can get more out of it, I think. I hope so. I hope we can get more out of it. And we are off once more. Not masses of gears to get through off the start line, which is always nice, always much easier. We're going to go for a big slide out that way. But that's okay. Yeah, it's another car. It's stuck to the road. There's no real big issues, although that does make it quite difficult. Like in this stage, again, where can I find time with this car? Not sure. There really wasn't any big, big running wide moments, big scary moments on that previous one. It's just try to be that little bit neater everywhere, play it maybe a little bit closer to some of the concrete barriers, but not with rolling the car. Clipping one of these concrete barriers, certainly in the high grip cars, will tend to send them tumbling over. This won't have a very high centre of mass, which is always good, but you're still... I've overdriven that corner. Bugger. Might just about get that back. Well, I mean, we'll still be able to get a half-decent run down here. Can we be later? We are later on the brakes, but it was a dodgier run onto the straight. That's a bit of a pain for the poor car. We have lost a little bit of time through all of there. Everywhere else, though, so far has been pretty damn good. Up towards the hairpin for the final time. Second gear will work through here. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice engine to work with. Sensible gear ratios. It's 22-0. For the Raider, again, fairly consistent runs so far. Yeah, there's that one sec heading onto the back straight. We were a teensy bit wonky, not a massive bit wonky though. There's a bit of time to be found, certainly, I think, in that, but only so much in that one section. Yeah, I don't know what else I can do. I'm giving it everything I can with the vehicle. It's an interesting. Just like style-wise, a good-looking car. Interesting. One of the things I have enjoyed about this series is seeing how different people have come up with all the different sort of styling. Like, I like the way the rear of this car is done with the grille and the lights and so on. I think it's an interesting way of doing the back of the car. Like, it gives me ideas when it comes to building cars. It has been quite helpful for my car designing. You see ideas that you like and ways that people have incorporated the different parts of the cars. It's always fun, seeing what people come up with their automation cars. And in this series, we've seen a lot of different body styles, a lot of interesting looking vehicles, some very pretty vehicles, some interesting, unique, scary contraptions. But yeah, seeing how people have used the fixtures in different ways is I'm loving the creativity. And the mighty wings that have gone on for some cars. I think I was a little early. I don't think this run's actually been that great either. I was a little early on the brakes there and realised it and tried to correct it, and it's all been a little bit scruffy. Oh, that was actually a better run. Hey, we've done the same thing to the rear wheel again. 21-7. Yeah, we got the section at the bottom a little better, and then we got the final section a little bit skewed. Ultimately, though, just couldn't get much more speed out of the vehicle. On to the results table, and it would be the Vette that'll go fastest of the day, up into a 16th place in 18.5. As I said, is a very, very quick time around this course. Not quite there to challenge the top 10, but it goes into an ever busiering? That's going to be a word now if it isn't already. A few tenths of a second makes a very, very big difference in all this. But it beats the Excalibur, the P16 Mini, the Cedro City, and so on. Yeah, that's a damn good car. We have to go a little bit further down to find our next vehicle, the 48th place for the Zeta. I'm still at a loss as to where that car's losing time. 20.9 is still a quick time. It felt faster. It felt like a very, very good car. It did not feel like there was anything massively, I say wrong with it. That's perhaps the wrong terminology, but yeah, I just couldn't seem to extract any more speed out of the vehicle. It is not too much further down until we find our next car. That will go into a 59th place, the Raider BX2 with 29.7. Again, another, I mean, another where a couple of tenths make a very, very big difference. Power to weight ratio was a little bit down, and again, perhaps not quite the ultimate corner grip that we have seen from some, but a good enough vehicle, a fun enough vehicle to drive overall. And then finally, it is quite a bit down to find our last car. Again, you know, it's heavier, it's not on semi-slicks, and it's more front-wheel drive, quite a lot front-wheel drive bias for the Centaur. 112th place for that car with a 29.6. It is, well, around with all sorts of interesting vehicles of varying different drivelines. A little bit slower than the big boaty McBoatface that lost its wing, but yeah, it's not a terrible car to drive at all, but it's just not that fast or that suited for this course. That, though, is going to be it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.